The White Wolf. It was a freezing, fireless night. The evening sun cast long shadows over the ground. The sky was a darkening red. In the Western Kingdom, a short distance from the narrow track leading south from Port Royal, the travellers had found shelter. The campsite was on an outcrop amongst a ring of small trees. The horses were tethered close to the rocks. This gave the group a small degree of protection on all sides. Gam, the forester, couldn't sleep. He kept pacing up and down the site, one hand on his short sword. Over his shoulder was slung his well-worn bow. He was middle-aged, with shaggy brown hair and a firm but severe face. Gam had insisted on silence throughout the camp. No light could be lit in case they drew the attention of the pursuers. The trees were between the hills and the sea. In the afternoon light, the remains of old farm huts and crumbling rock walls had been visible. In better times, it would have been prosperous farmlands. Now the area was abandoned. Mist fogged the air, and he felt it through his heavy leather armour, green jacket and trousers. This was not like the Northern Confederation the visitors were accustomed to. There, the land rose quickly from the sea to the foothills of the mountains. Gam was more cautious than the other small group of travellers. He worried about the approaching southern invaders, as well as local brigands and hungry wild animals. His pure black eyes darted back and forth over the outcrop, trying to sense if danger was close. The Port Royal guards stood under the trees with their gaudy, ornate, bronze-plated armour. None of them carried a bow or an arrow. Gam didn't think any of them had ever lifted their swords in true combat. They huddled together, muttering. Gam heard the loudest say, "This isn't what we were paid to do. We're escorts, not fighters." When Gam walked close, they fell silent. He knew they were worried, ready to run at any moment. Gam kept walking past the group of snoring, huddled nobles. "Forester, may I offer you one of my arrows?" A silvery voice spoke. Gam stopped, surprised. A young woman sat on the side of the group. She rested on her side, with a strong hand by her sword. Gam felt her pale yellow eyes following him as he neared. He bent down. He took the 3 arrows from the girl gratefully. His quiver was empty. "Many thanks, mistress. I'm greatly indebted to you," he said quietly. "Take care of yourself, Gam," the girl replied in the Western dialect. She was more sensibly dressed than her noble companions. She wore riding trousers and a jacket over a matching cloak of calf fur. "I am Juliana of House Slimond." "Thank you, Miss Juliana," Gam nodded. "Can you not sleep either?" "I must admit, I am afraid. I'm not sure what to expect. I've never faced this kind of danger before. All my life, I've been protected by the walls of a castle. I was taught the different dialects, of course, so I learned of the troubles in the south. But no one ever told me it had reached this close to the north." She shifted uncomfortably. "At every sound, I don't know whether to run or to fight." She glanced behind Gam. She paled. "What was that? I thought I heard some sort of animal." "Don't worry," Juliana assured Gam. "In a situation like this, anyone who says they are not scared is lying. This will not be like the Ruta Games, where the only risk is gaining a few bruises. In a fight to the death, you never know who will win." The distant sound of waves mingled with the snores of the sleeping group. The bulky shoulders of Gam's employer, an old friend, Duke Tans, rose and fell. "Will it be a fight to the death, Gam?" she asked in a small voice. "Perhaps, but if we successfully arrive in Port Royal tomorrow, we will be safe." Juliana stared at the ground. "I regret ever travelling to the south." Gam watched a small boy, still awake, huddled next to the main group. The boy turned a long-bladed knife in his hands. Gam spoke quietly. I'll be keeping an eye on that boy. He's like a compass to danger. He always senses when the enemy is near. Your boy is very quiet for a 6-year-old. He's neat and tidy in spite of everything that's happened. Does he really know how to handle that knife? The forester leaned back. Certainly, Juliana, he does. He's been blooded before. He has a hatred for those invaders. He's seen what they've done to the families of the West. Juliana flinched. Choosing his words more carefully, Gamma added, "Now, if I may presume to give you a little bit of hard-earned advice, when we are attacked, do not hesitate. Act immediately. It will calm your nerves, allow you to think clearly." A smile lit up her face. "Thank you, Gam. Your guidance is greatly appreciated. It would be best if you shoot your arrow at their faces. Some may wear a thick covering of clothes to minimize the effect of incoming arrows. Others have heavy leather vests. They like to wear metal or leather caps, but their faces are always exposed. That face is the only worthwhile target." "Gam, you speak like a noble who has seen the worst." "Thank you, Juliana. Was a noble would be the best way of putting it. Many years ago now." Gam stood up again to resume his pacing. "Sleep well. I'll give you a call before first light." When the night showed signs of ending, a few escorting women and their young charges complained bitterly. In loud voices they said, "Where's our blasted fire? We're freezing." "For your safety, I cannot allow a fire," Gam said sternly. "Without warmth, our fingers are unable to move, let alone hold a heavy sword." Finally, Gam relented. "Damn, all right. You may light a small fire, but do not relax." He turned his back on them and continued to keep watch over the boy. It was nearly dawn when the boy stirred. He rose and suddenly shouted, "Over there!" The deafening sound of hooves thundered out from the glimmering pre-dawn light. The heavy blanket of morning fog obscured everything. Movement seemed to surround them. The badly injured Duke Tans woke with a start. His eyes were clear behind his long dark beard, striped with white. The Duke forced himself to his feet, drawing his sword. He moved slowly. His normally immaculate clothes were replaced with bloody bandages. Gam rushed to his side. To arms, he yelled. Some men had been sitting round the glowing embers of a small fire, holding steaming mugs of mead. All rose and drew swords. Those too slow or looking the wrong way never had a chance in the melee of trampling hooves and slashing scimitars. Black-clothed and plate-armoured warriors surrounded them. A masked few, still on horseback, directed the attack of the now on-foot warriors, swarming the small group of defenders. Lady Cadence, her two valiant sons, and her close retainer collapsed, wounded. Gam's 3 arrows found their targets, and the invaders fell. He noticed Juliana a distance away. She was shooting well, and another 6 riders fell with arrows to their faces. Gam drew his sword and used his bow to fend off the attackers. Duke Tans was by his side, but Duke Tans and Gam were well and truly outnumbered. They couldn't last long. They both crashed to the ground in the trampled grass. Gam's leg was badly gashed and bleeding. The Duke lay next to him, whispered, "Sorry, old friend, you'll have to look after the boy again." Then he closed his eyes and didn't wake. Gam spent the rest of the night on his back in agony, unable to move. All he could do was to wave his sword at anyone who approached. He watched his old friend C.A, attendant to Lady Cadence, trying desperately to protect the lady and her dying children. C.A screamed in pain as she held back the blade thrust at her by an armoured warrior. She fumbled for her weapon. Then her wooden cudgel struck and broke the attacker's arm. The blade dropped and she caught it. She backed towards the lady's sons and swung the cudgel and sword over their bodies as a protective shield. "Leave her," yelled the masked leader roughly from atop his horse. The nearing warrior stopped. "They ain't worth taking as slaves. I've got the girl. Get the Duke's boy out of here. Kill the rest." The attackers surrounded the armoured port-roll guards. The guards huddled together, round shields lifted. They stood strong, until more and more attackers swarmed down upon them. Then only a few were left standing in the fierce battle. The tumult was deafening. Friend collided with foe. The stench of fear and metallic blood was overpowering. Death surrounded them. The attack would soon be over. Gam had momentarily forgotten about the boy standing by the Duke. He looked round frantically, but couldn't see him. Gam watched in fascination and gratitude as Seer ran fearlessly back into the fray. The boy was lying on the ground, bleeding from his head. A warrior was near. Seer was determined to save at least one child. Nobody would ever forget that smirk on the warrior's rough face as he lifted his bloody sword over the unconscious lad at his feet. His battered shield easily warded off Seer's cudgel. He taunted her. "You want to keep him?" He cut his sword up and down the boy's jacket, drawing a sliver of blood from his arm each time. "Leave the boy alone, he's already bleeding!" Seer's screams were lost in the frenzy as she lunged. As she did, there was a movement from the trees. A huge white shape flashed past. The attackers paused, startled. A monstrous white wolf, taller than even the largest horse, stood over the dying raider's body. The ground was splattered in the blood of Seer's opponent. It was hard to see where his head had once joined his body. Seer carefully bent to the fallen boy. She pulled him into her arms and stepped back from immediate danger. The wolf turned its head. It looked down at her with bright yellow eyes. Its huge open jaws were close to her face. "My gods, no! She's going to be next," Gam thought in panic. Nobody could move. There was shocked silence from friend and foe alike. The wolf turned back and raised its massive paw over the attacker's head. A hideous sound came from the writhing body. His skin began to darken and melt into a thick black slime. A whirling shadow rose from it, exuding the stench of decay. Tendrils of dark cloud overtook the fleeing attackers one by one. They were screaming and crying out in their own language, falling over each other. The only distant word Gam caught was Jinju, dark magic. Those who managed to climb onto their horses raced away. The leader had a wriggling girl in brown leather slung over his saddle. Juliana. One or two horses stumbled. Their thrown riders collapsed and were consumed by the dark cloud. The horses stood dazed but unharmed. The entire group of travelers were paralyzed by fear of a terrible unknown. Was it coming for them? But in a blink of an eye, the wolf had disappeared. It left not the faintest track on the damp, trampled ground. The travelers looked round in disbelief. A few survivors gave a faint cheer. Gam shivered with cold or shock. None of the group had ever been so close to death. The mist rose, and dawn's first golden light appeared over the deserted farms and peaceful woodlands. The fresh breeze brought the smell of the sea. The morning birds chirped. Gam sighed with relief.